Hey everybody, this is Jason with Colorado Mountain Men Survival and Survival University. Today I'm going to show you how to make some emergency fire starters with items that you can use out of your kitchen. Now I've done this video before, but I'm going to show you with a little bit of twist some different things that you can use to make these emergency fire starters. I usually carry one or two of these in my backpack when I go out on trips. These are more for when something's going wrong and you really want to get a fire started really quickly. But before we get going into all that, I'm going to show you the items that I use to make those emergency fire starters. First of all, you're going to need an egg carton, a cardboard egg carton. It doesn't matter if you do a dozen or 18, whichever you prefer to get. You can't use the styrofoam ones, it has to be these cardboard egg cartons. The next thing you're going to need is some aluminum foil. I prefer the heavy duty aluminum foil, so it protects that egg carton a little bit better. I'll explain that later in the process. Next thing you're going to need is some wax. I typically use Gulf paraffin wax. This costs about $3. You can get it in the baking aisle at the grocery store next to wherever you can find Jello. You can also use candle wax from old candles or an existing candle. I'm not going to use that today. What I am going to use today, if I have enough of it, and a lot of you have this in your house, are the Scentsy pot things. Guys, if you are worried about people giving you a hard time about Scentsy pot, tell them I use it. I say it's okay, so it's got to be cool. But after you've used these, save that wax. I've been saving it for a while. I got an old cook pot that I use. Don't use your wife's cook pot or your good cook pot to make these. It could potentially ruin it. But once these have been expired with the scent, pour them into something, and then you can use them to make these emergency fire starters. No point in wasting that material. Again, don't use a good cooking pot. You're also going to need some cotton balls and there it is, and some Vaseline. All things you can get pretty easy. Again, these are something that you're going to prep ahead of time. You don't want to be making them out in the field, although you can. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to melt down our wax. I'm going to melt down this Scentsy pot wax that I've previously used. If you're doing it over an open flame, you want to heat it slowly. You don't want this splashing and bubbling or spilling because the wax is somewhat flammable. If you're doing it over a campfire, be very careful. It's easy for that wax to catch on fire. But pay attention. Heat it up slowly, let it melt slowly. If you are using the Gulf paraffin wax, let me show you what this looks like on the inside in case you've never used it before. It comes in 4 bricks, these 4 white bricks, and all it is wax. 2 of these will do a dozen eggs, or that egg carton with a dozen. So if you're using a dozen egg carton, use 2. If you've got the 18, use 3. You can use less, but I found that using 2 per dozen usually works best. Alright, so let's get going on this. First things first, I'm going to use this Scentsy pot wax. So I've got on my stove, I'm going to heat it up here and completely liquefy it. And while that's happening, what I'm going to do is just prep the egg carton. First thing I'm going to do is tear off the lid and this little tab. I'm going to use these as a fuel or a wick for this fire. So what I want to do is I've got this egg carton. Now the lid and this little piece I'm going to shred up into little bitty pieces and put inside this egg carton. Hot wax, it's gonna suck if you get it on yourself, so be careful. Pan is hot, so I'm gonna use my fancy survival tool here. And I'm gonna saturate all this cardboard. Melts, I'm gonna go ahead and prep my cotton balls. There's 12 eggs for this one, so I need 12 cotton balls, and I need the Vaseline. So what you can do if you don't want to get too messy is put a dozen cotton balls inside of a sandwich bag, and stick about a heaping tablespoon of Vaseline in there, and then mix it around. I don't care if my hands get a little messy, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and dip my cotton ball in here and just smash it in there. I want to get the outside coated, so I got a big bit of Vaseline on there, and I'm just going to slather that around. You don't want too terribly much. Some people like to tear the cotton balls apart. I don't really care for that too much. I just like to get the outside covered. I might fluff it up a little bit and get a little bit on the internal bits of that cotton ball, but I don't completely tear it apart because I want it to kind of stick together. I want to be able to pull this apart later and expose some of those hairy fibers, the cotton fibers inside here. So I'm going to make a dozen of these. When I'm done with that, I'll show you what you're going to do. Okay, so it's cooled down. Took about 20 minutes or so for that to cool off. Anyways, the next thing to do is to cut this up into individual pieces. Each one of these little egg carton areas needs to be for one unit. So I'll just cut that up here real quick. All right, now I got 12 of those. Once they're all cut up, I'm going to put a cotton ball on the top of each one. All right, now we got that. Now each one of these is going to go over or be wrapped in a sheet of aluminum foil. So first thing I'm going to do, any of these corners, these tabs, I'm going to fold that over top of the cotton ball. And then I'm going to take my aluminum foil, I'm going to set it in there, and then I'm going to just wrap it around. I try not to wrap these too tightly because if your hands are cold, once these have been in your pack for a while, it might be difficult to get undone. Something else you can do is if you're worried about having a hard time finding this piece, is take one of these cardboard pieces here and stick it in the top piece. Now when you want to take it apart, it's really easy to get that. But this right here is an emergency fire starter, what I call emergency fire starter. So now I got 12 of these. This could last me a year, but on an overnight I'll take one. If I'm going out for a few days, I'll take 2 or 3. But when you're ready to use this, you simply just unwrap this, make a little cup out of your aluminum foil, fluff up your cotton ball, and ignite it with either a lighter or a ferro rod. All right, here we are outside next morning. This is one of the emergency fire starters from last night. I wanted to do a little outside test to show you how these work. To step it up a little bit, brought some water out, and put that down in there. So you can start this with a lighter or a ferro rod or matches or whatever it is you have with you. Really, when you're cold outside, this is going to be a little bit more difficult. But we're going to open this up and start it with my ferro rod on my knife. Get out some of that water. So that's, if you fall in a stream or something, these might get a little wet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fluff up this cotton ball. Put it on there. Last night I used my ferro rod around my neck this morning and used one on my knife. So if you need to, if it's not burning well enough, carefully fluff up that cotton ball a little bit. Let it go. You can hear the water sizzling a little bit coming off that cotton ball that came from that glass. So again, I've had one of these burn for 30, 40 minutes or so. If you got a high wind day, make sure you protect that from the wind. Once it gets going, you can start adding little bits of wood on there. Make sure you have all your tinder collected ahead of time. While that's burning, I want to talk to you about something I'm pretty excited about. This just got released a couple of days ago. My book, almost said new book, but it's my only book, Wilderness Survival Guide, Practical Skills for the Outdoor Adventurer. So I appreciate you guys supporting me on the videos and on my webpage. If you want to support me further and buy the book, you can check on the link below. It's on Amazon. Really appreciate it if you guys would support me a little bit further. But anyways, enough of that. These things are great. I use them all the time. Typically make them for emergencies, but you know, I don't really typically run into a lot of emergencies. So I use them when I'm just being lazy. Honestly, I use them in my wood burning stove up at camp just because this is easier to start than rolled up newspaper or anything, and it burns for quite a long time. Typically high wind day, 15 minutes. A nice calm morning like today, we're looking at 30, 40 minutes, depending on how much wax and everything in there. But as you can see, this is quite a bit of heat, quite a bit of flame. Warm up my hands. If I had a little camp stove, set this in there, I could probably boil a cup of water. But this is my emergency fire starter. Try it out, make these at home, make them before you head out into the field, and they work great. There you go. And also, you can pick it up and move it. But anyways, hopefully you learned something. See you again next time.